What's going on today, guys? We're talking about a topic of interest to me a lot lately. Is it interesting to you?
It is.
Omega-3s, omega-6s, how you should go about incorporating those into your diet, what ratio, what foods you should avoid a little bit because they're super high in omega-6, what foods you should include because they're high in omega-3.
And what even high in omega-6 means in terms of how it's processed in your body. What is happening there?
I don't even know if I know that, but we'll get into it a little.
Well, inflammation.
Inflammation.
We're getting at that.
Okay, yeah, at the base level, and this is we're dumbing down everything, right? But omega-6, pro-inflammatory, omega-3, anti-inflammatory. A big thing is that the omega-6 content of the Western diet is just astronomical. It's super high. It's like a 20-to-1, 6-to-3 ratio for most Americans, most westernized societies, which is problematic. It's just not what humans have done throughout history. And with the advent of vegetable oils is really what infused so much omega-6s in the diet.
And you can see a clear connection, vegetable oil uses,
Yes.
to increase in disease, inflammation, obesity.
There's also some guidelines given by certain organizations, but I was trying to figure out how much omega-3 do you actually want to eat per day. And it is pretty tough to get omega-3s in your diet. You have to go out of your way. You got to go hunting for it. Recommendations, there is no FDA recommendation for the amount of omega-3 you want in your diet. They just don't really say much about it at all. The European equivalent to the FDA, the EFSA,
Okay.
they consider up to 5,000 milligrams per day to be safe.
Okay. That's a high amount.
That's a lot. In America, though, there is some organizations that give guidelines for omega-3 consumption to treat certain diseases and just to be healthy.
People with coronary heart disease take 1,000 milligrams of omega-3s, and then patients with high triglycerides take anywhere between 2,000 to 4,000 milligrams of omega-3s.
So that's a lot too. That's pretty high.
Yeah, that's a really good recommendation.
So just based on that, my takeaway is you can get away with supplementing a pretty decent amount of omega-3s in your diet and not run into problems. And then the biggest study that I could find that kind of shows the efficacy of omega-3 supplementation, 11,000 participants took 850 milligrams of EPA and DHA combined. We'll get to that in a minute. So DHA and EPA are forms of omega-3s. The results of the 11,000 person study was, we actually have a blog post you guys can check out. It's linked below that's going to have the sources for all this info if you want to read into it a little bit further. 25% reduction in heart attacks and 45% reduction in sudden death. So that's a pretty decent sample size that shows that it's pretty effective to supplement with this.
And even at such a small dose, because 850 milligrams isn't a lot.
It's like a couple fish oil pills. One thing to note though, all of these studies, every study basically ever done that shows the effectiveness of supplementing omega-3s, it's based on DHA and EPA. It's not based on ALA, the plant form of omega-3. So flax seeds, chia seeds, hemp seeds, all these are high in omega-3s, but they have literally zero milligrams of EPA and DHA. They have entirely ALA. And in the body, ALA can convert into EPA and DHA at a rate of 1%.
Okay.
1% conversion rate. So effectively nothing. So to actually get DHA and EPA, you need to eat them in your diet. And then a few other studies, reduces risk of breast, colon, prostate cancer. And I think the big one is reduction in anxiety and depression. And then what is the optimal ratio? And the reason a lot of times people talk about omega-3 and omega-6 in the terms of a ratio is because in your body they compete for the same enzymes. So the ratio matters. So if you're just jamming omega-6 in your body, you need a comparable amount of omega-3 to offset that. So the ratio that you should be shooting for, we don't know for sure. It's probably between 1-to-1 and 4-to-1.
So 4 parts omega-6?
Omega-6.
And 1 part omega-3.
Anything lower than a 4-to-1 ratio, you're probably doing okay.
Yeah.
Because most Americans, as we mentioned earlier, 20-to-1.
And we did an omega-3 to 6 ratio tracking day of eating that Matt will link below as well. So if you want to check that out and see what we ate and how we tracked, that's a great resource as well to just get started.
How do you actually implement this? What changes can you make in your diet right now?
Foods can you eat? Yeah.
Because here's kind of the dynamic at play is it's extremely easy to get crazy amounts of omega-6. If you eat a tablespoon of soybean oil, it's hard to even offset that with omega-3s to get that ratio back to the 4-to-1 or less.
So a tablespoon of soybean oil could be in the form of salad dressing or mayo.
So the two-pronged approach to getting better about this, obviously, is 1, increasing omega-3 intake.
Right.
2, decreasing omega-6 intake. And decreasing omega-6 is going to be easier and I think even like a bigger impact on your diet. Some examples of high omega-6 foods, like these ones will just really wreck your ratio.
Grapeseed oil, sunflower oil, and soybean oil.
2 tablespoons worth of grapeseed oil, 21 grams of omega-6. So if you're really trying hard on a full day, like getting in as much omega-3s as possible, say you're getting 5,000 milligrams, that means at most, to be within that 4-to-1 ratio, you can have 20 grams of omega-6. 2 tablespoons of grapeseed oil, you're already at 21.
And grapeseed oil, you're gonna find less, I think, in things you're eating anyway, so I wouldn't worry about that one so much.
Soybean oil.
But sunflower and soybean are found
salad dressings
in a lot of different products. Yeah.
Where you're just gonna pour a few tablespoons on.
Or if you're eating out, guys.
Yeah.
Eating out, you don't really realize or you don't think about it because you're just so focused on like the carbs and the foods. But eating any fast food or even just like in high-end restaurants, they're not like always cooking in beef tallow or beef shortening or something.
Like wing is a big one. We search now to find places that actually don't use soybean oil, like Wingstop. I love it.
Sorry, Rick Ross.
But it's hard for me to go back there knowing now that they fry it in soybean oil.
Is it soybean or peanut?
Soybean. It's really good though.
B-Dubs, Buffalo Wild Wings, does beef shortening, which is a great option.
Yeah, but Wingstop tastes better. It hands down. I've decided that now.
So you have to decide, is it taste or is it health? Right? Isn't that the battle?
Yeah, that's the battle
for
with
all
everything.
Americans.
So really the problem is the most extreme in these oils that are produced really unnaturally. Like you would never just top your salad with soybean oil 2,000 years ago, right? That wouldn't be a thing you could do. The second biggest problem area is going to be nuts and seeds, for a keto diet at least. Most nuts have a decent omega-6 content. That's why I try limiting it to like 1 to 2 servings a day at most. Some nuts that are not as bad is going to be macadamia nuts are actually quite good. They're really low in omega-6s relative to all the other nuts. Almonds and peanuts aren't terrible. Like for 1 ounce serving of almonds, you're looking at like 3,000 milligrams. And then lastly is going to be meats. Or like animal foods.
Yes.
They all contain a little bit of omega-6, a little bit of omega-3. So it's worth kind of noting which are higher, I think.
Yeah.
Like just by doing research for this video, pork is super high in omega-6 relative to other animal sources of food. Like
none of them are really that high.
None of them are that high. Like when you have like grapeseed oil and soybean oil, nothing's close to that.
Yeah.
Especially like bacon is pretty high in omega-6s. And then you'll hear the claims. This one, it just really annoys me for some reason because it's all marketing. Grass-fed versus grain-fed. 8 times more omega-3s in your grass-fed compared to the grain-fed beef. It doesn't really matter because it's like such a minuscule amount. It's not significant. It's not enough to justify the cost.
Though it's true, it's not offsetting the omega-6 imbalance in your body anyway.
Yeah.
So, you know, if cost is an issue, don't be like, well, the omega-3s is what I'm going for, so I'm going to get that grass-fed.
Yeah, so the best in omega-6s, or at least the lowest, is going to be beef. Then you have chicken, and then you kind of have pork at the higher end. Okay, and then the next thing you're going to need to do is add some omega-3s to your diet.
How do we do that?
Fish, basically, is the only real way.
Not a great option, in my opinion.
Yeah, so you can do fish oils, the pills. The only thing with those is they're a lot of times oxidized, which then they're not that effective. So you probably want to get a decent quality fish oil is a good way to do it. I like to take cod liver oil in the morning, about a tablespoon. Salmon is very high in omega-3s. The actual highest foods is like roe, caviar, the eggs of fish. Those are extremely high. But then you got like salmon. And when you're buying salmon, if you're like looking to get the omega-3s from salmon, you want to buy it with the skin on. You don't want to get the salmon like pre-frozen fillets with no skin. When you look at the back, it's like 3 grams of fat.
Yeah.
So you're not really getting barely any omega-3s at all when you're doing that. And basically just like all fish, herring, fatty fish is where you get omega-3s from. What about flax seeds, chia seeds, hemp seeds, plant sources of omega-3s?
Those aren't great forms because they don't have the EPA and DHA omega-3s that you're looking for, that you want in your body. Yeah. They are filled with ALA, which can be converted. Very minimal chance that's going to happen. It's a 1% chance.
They're effectively useless. That's simplifying it. Obviously, they have some use, like ALA does certain bodily functions, but all the research on omega-3s is talking about EPA and DHA. Supplementing with plant sources of omega-3s doesn't make sense. So a lot of lists, like if you look at high omega-3 foods on the internet, the first thing that pops up is flax seeds. It's not, like realistically, it's not. On paper, it is. Actually, like for the health benefits, it's not at all a good form of omega-3.
So to wrap things up, when you're looking at your omega-3 to omega-6 ratio, you want a 1-to-1 or a 4-to-1 ratio. That's ideal. Very difficult to do, and definitely not something like you need to stop, drop, and do immediately, right? It's a step-by-step process that we just started recently implementing. So we've provided you with foods you can start intaking or ways you can cut back on just intaking a lot of omega-6s. A good way to track this or to see where you're at if you just want to look at an average day is using Chronometer. That's what we've been using, and it gives you your breakdown of all your minerals and your nutrients you're intaking, including your omega-3 and 6. And then even if you like hover over the omega-3 and 6, it tells you where you're getting it from, so you can see what foods are positively impacting you and what foods probably not the best, and maybe you can work on getting rid of slowly over the course of time.
Yeah, so Chronometer is a tracking app. It's similar to MyFitnessPal, LifeSum, all those type of things. It just gives you more detailed nutritional info. So like at the end of the day, I just look to my omega-3/6 ratio and I see what were the biggest contributors from that day to my omega-3s and my omega-6s. And most days, my only omega-3s is from the cod liver oil I take in the morning. So it's just like another piece to the puzzle, maybe something you can implement into your diet as you want to get more serious about it, as you like want to improve. Definitely not something to jump into right away. Like just do the most basic things first. Eat low carb, get some healthy fats in. That's what matters most. This is like the 1% that will maybe make a little bit of a difference.
Yeah, and check out the article linked below if you just want to read up more on this and check out the sources we mentioned earlier in the video.